Welcome back, everybody, to another video here on the Washington Football Maniacs YouTube channel. My name is Greg Sykes, your host. My co-host here is Brandon Scott. Brandon, thank you for joining us once again in this video. So, folks, guess what? We wrapped up preseason last night with a win over the Cincinnati Bengals, 21-19. It was another good outing by the quarterbacks and the wide receivers, and we're going to cover those two groups actually in this video. Who's going to say who's going to go? Well, certainly the sports media has already made their predictions. Do our predictions line up with those talking heads, or do we have something a little bit different in store? Let's get into it. So, before we get into it, just quickly make sure you subscribe to this channel, please, and hit that notification bell. Okay, I don't think some of you guys are hitting the notification bell because you're not watching the videos, and I know you love the videos when you catch them because we hear it all the time. So just make sure that you subscribe, hit that notification bell. Okay, enough with the house cleaning. Let's get into it. So, Brandon, we didn't see any Sam Howell last night, of course, but we did see Jacoby Brissett play. I thought he played better last night than what he did in the previous game against the Baltimore Ravens. But Jake Fromm, I thought he played really well last night. I've got to give him props. We're sitting here, we were discussing this before the video started. We're thinking that the Commanders should really look long and hard about carrying three quarterbacks, maybe keeping Jake Fromm. Maybe he makes the 53-man roster. Maybe we go with one less receiver. Okay, you're going to put on your coaching hat, your front office hat. You're going to make the moves, Brandon. Who stays and who goes? Let's start with quarterbacks.
Man, good question, man. Real good question. Because last night, looking at the stat line, as far as quarterback, wow. Jake Fromm, 13 for 18, 144 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions with a 132.6 quarterback rating. And then if you look at Jacoby Brissett, 10 for 15, he did better, 96 yards, 1 touchdown. Overall, you could argue that Fromm had the better preseason. Fromm really showed out. I know not a lot of people were really high on Fromm coming out of the University of Georgia, but he looked good. He had a very good preseason. So I definitely think that he's a keeper. Now, I know he's a candidate to maybe, going to the practice squad, but I think he needs to stay on the roster, man. I think he needs to be part of the 53 because depth's a good thing, especially in football. Injuries happen. I think he needs to stay on the 53. Jacoby Brissett, you already said it. He had a better game, but he did struggle overall in the preseason. But you can't put a price on experience, right? So just experience alone, he's had starting experience. It's kind of like a basketball or even baseball spring training. Sometimes you can't really. Can you use that as a measuring stick? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes people have bad preseasons, spring training, whatever, and they have a good year. I forget what was it a couple of years ago, if not Jamar Chase. He had a terrible preseason, and people were wondering, what's going to happen going forward. And then you look at him; he's an all-pro talent. So it really depends on the player. But Jacoby Brissett really didn't wow anybody this preseason. But I'll say this: Jake Fromm, man. Jake Fromm from State Farm. He can play some ball, man. Look at him. He's got an arm on him. He's got a pocket presence. So, yeah, definitely going forward, man. I want to see 3 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster. Because another big reason why is because, look, Sam Howell, as much as I love his intangibles, as much as I love what he brings to the table, he's only had one career start. And that's a knock on him that, he looked good in the preseason. He's checked every box as far as leadership, as far as poise, as far as arm, as far as, extending plays. But you still got to go out there and play. And so then that's the bigger reason why I think that you got to have experience and you got to have depth behind him going forward. Because, if he does not perform at expectations or injuries happen, you don't want to have just Jacoby Brissett being the only quarterback behind him. especially if he gets hurt. I mean, you need depth. So yeah, looking at the 53 man, I'm definitely going to retain Fromm, and I'm looking at three quarterbacks being on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing hideous about Jake Fromm's play during preseason. I thought he had a very solid preseason. Again, last night he played really well. Yeah, nothing to complain about. I mean, certainly to me, I felt really comfortable as far as if he eventually overtakes Jacoby Brissett, maybe becomes that number two quarterback, I would feel very comfortable with that. I mean, yeah, you could see certain things from where you can tell, okay, yeah, he's got to settle down. He's a little antsy in the pocket, and you know that clock is just going off in his head a little too quickly. But with time and experience, all that slows down for anybody who can last in the NFL. And I think that he has enough that you could probably develop him into a really solid backup. And I would rather have a young, solid backup that wants to stick with the team and learn the offense and be that solid guy rather than a journeyman guy, honestly. Because you know what you're going to get with Jacoby Brissett, and there's nothing against him. I mean, he's going to come in and win some games for you, but overall, I felt he looked pretty shaky. The first game, I thought he looked okay. Second game, horrible. Third game, he kind of redeemed himself a little bit, but I still saw some passes that were just not really there. But yeah, Jake Fromm, I really hope we do retain him. He's likely going to the practice squad. I just hope he doesn't get picked off of the practice squad. So yes, I think it's not every day that you find some good, solid quarterbacks. And as we just need to go back in time just a couple of years ago, and you got Johnson starting for us who hadn't played in the NFL in several years, and so you could be in that situation. But let's move past the quarterbacks. Let's go into the wide receivers now. You and I have our favorites, and of course, most of everybody's going to kind of agree with us on the first three, right? Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and of course, I think you and I probably also agree. Diamond Brown had a wonderful preseason this year. He looks light years ahead of what he looked like last year, year before that, and I think Jamie Brown definitely should be that number four receiver. He played a little bit again last night, played well. Luckily he didn't have that concussion. So I think that definitely he's going to make the team at this point. I know before preseason all that got started, there was, we were kind of wondering, is he even going to make the roster? He's making that roster. He's more than proven that he can make the roster. But past Diami Brown, you start to look at the other guys, and if we look at I just pulled up the Washington Post, and here's who they're saying is in. Of course, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Diami Brown. No argument there. And then they're saying Byron Pringle, and that could be true because, of course, he knows the Kansas City offense, and that's just going to be an advantage for the rest of the group there, being able to pick his brain and to kind of get an idea from him of Eric Bieniemy's tendencies and play calling. And then, of course, the big one, Dax Millen, that I'm sorry, I think that he is not really wowed me at all. I think he's more than on the bubble. I think I don't see how Dax makes the team. I would rather, and see if you agree with me or not, Brandon, but they're talking about who's out, Kashmir Allen. I would rather keep Kashmir Allen. Uh, look long and hard at Mitchell Tinsley, guys like that. Honestly, it's down to those two guys for me. I would look long and hard at those two guys because I think, especially Kazmir Allen, I think provides special teams. I think he gives more of a boost to special teams than what Dax Mill will. And so I don't agree with the Washington Post that Dax Millen is in and Kashmir Allen is out. I think Allen gets that final spot if we go with all of those wide receivers. And we may decide, you know what, we're not going to go with that many wide receivers, and we're going to hold that open for third quarterback. But what are your thoughts on that, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm looking at the athletic and what they project for the Washington Commanders, and they got 7 receivers. And then obviously, look, the top 3, and really you can argue the top 4. Scary Terry is your number 1 option, no debate there. Jahan Dotson's definitely, the Robin, the Batman there. Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, no issues there. But like you said, with the Washington Post having Dax Milne, let me say this: Dax Milne ain't it, man. As far as receiver, he ain't it. In special teams, he played last year, and special teams was just stagnant. It is what it is. I think Dax Milne he's hit the end of the line at least for this organization. Um, I guess look at right there, we got 4. So if they go with 6, I'm gonna say definitely Byron Pringle, just the fact that he has familiarization with Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City. I think that's an obvious spot right there. But Mitchell Tinsley, look, 3 receptions, 89 yards, almost 2 touchdowns. I don't know if you saw that, man, but I believe that was a touchdown, man.
I think
He,
it was.
yeah, he hit the pylon. So I don't,
Yes.
it is what it is. We still turn around and got to score. And here's another thing to bring up. That next play where I forget who scored, but that was a play from Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City, and that was a slick play. So I mean, you
Yeah.
already see his play calling as far as how crafty these plays are. So, but I definitely you got to look at Mitchell Tinsley, man. I mean, I like he's got some size to him, man. He's got some dog to him. But like you said, we both agree that Dax Milne just ain't it, man. But Kazmir Allen, I mean, if you carry 7 receivers, I definitely think that Kazmir Allen needs to be that guy because special teams wise, I think he might be the answer to special teams. Because I can't remember the last time we've had a guy on special teams that really scared anybody. I mean, obviously everybody knows about Brian Mitchell. We had Antoine Randall, which he wasn't too shabby on special teams either. But Deshaun Jackson every once in a while he was that guy. But I can't remember last time we had a guy that really scared anybody on special teams. So I think that Kevin Allen's got a little dog to him too. I mean, he's got some speed on him. So yeah, if they go 6, then I'm definitely going McLaurin, Dawson, Samuel, De'Ami Brown, Byron Pringle, and Mitchell Tinsley. But if they go 7, I definitely think they need to consider Kazmir Allen. But overall, even with the practice squad, 3 names I'd like to see on the practice squad. I mean, maybe Dax Milne is a practice squad guy, see what he has. But Bryson Tremaine looked good last night, and I think that might have been the guy who scored that touchdown. And
I think
Marcus
it
Kemp,
was. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Uh,
So I think Marcus Kemp, man, I think he needs to be another guy they need to look at because he has special teams kind of potential. But yeah, we were talking about quarterback, and obviously there's a lot more groups to consider when it comes to the 53-man roster because, man, I don't envy the coaching staff with those calls, man. It's tough. And with this group, with this team, man, it's gonna be a tough year to cut people. But looking at these quarterback and wide receiver, they have options. They really do have options. They have a good group because that top 4 ain't a bad group. You can argue that between McLaurin, Dotson, and Sam, and even Brown, man, you have a top 10 receiving group. So and then you add the fact that like I said, Mitchell Tinsley impressed me, Byron Pringle has impressed me, and Kazmir Allen and Bryson Tremaine. It's just Dax Milne, he ain't it, man. He just didn't wow me. I was very surprised they stuck with him as long as they did last year, special teams. He just wasn't that guy. So yeah, I agree, man. That would definitely be my group going forward. And I think that Washington Post and Athletic might be tripping, man, because I think that I just don't see what people see in Dax Milne. None against Dax Milne, man. Look, only so many people make it to this level. So you're not garbage. You are definitely a high level athlete. It's just as far as what they need him to be, which is a special teams guy, he just ain't it, Greg.
I think that they have really tried to make him be our version of Edelman, you know, and I'm sorry, but he's just not it. I mean, he looked like he had a better preseason uh, than what I've seen him play like all collectively so far. I mean, it looked like he has improved. Um, but yeah, this shows you how deep that I think this team is starting to get in terms of each position. We're starting to see that. Good teams has such strong depth that you're going to see some really fantastic players get cut. And that happens on championship teams. You're like, man, I can't believe that guy didn't make the 53-man roster. And it's teams like us that comes and picks up those guys, and they play really well for us. And it's like, well, that's because that the cream of the crop rises, and you know they are so talented that their starters and their first string backup, so to speak, yes, second stringers, um, they can just step in and not miss a beat. And I think slowly we're kind of starting to see that. We're starting to see good drafting all across the board, save for the offensive line. We're still going to be a little antsy on that. But other than that, we're starting to see good depth, and especially at skilled positions. So, yeah, I really think that you can afford to look at somebody like Dax Mill and say, we're going to be picky. We want the best of the best, and he can go somewhere else and maybe develop into a decent player. But we want somebody who's got some moxie to them, um, and we don't want someone who's just going to fair catch every now and then. We want someone who can break um, some tackles, who can take it to the house on these kick returns, punt returns, and all that stuff. So I'm with you. Again, nothing. I know this is going to sound like the Dax Mill haters club, and no, we're keeping it real as far as we really feel like this year we can look at these guys and be like, we can be picky. We know who are the best, and I think it's pretty clear to us. I don't think you're gonna keep some guys just because they've been on the team, and you're starting to, well, I kind of have an attachment. I can't picture us not having this guy on the team. A lot of us fans would do that in recent years. It's like I can't believe we would get rid of um, Pierre Garcon. How could we get rid of him? And all this stuff. So yeah, I am going to be probably more shocked if Dax makes the squad and these others don't. I
Oh,
think I'm going to be
absolutely.
very shocked. Yeah. So, but then again, I mean, these coaches see more than what we see. But then again, it's the product on the field on Sundays that all of us fans see. And and that's ultimately what we want to see is the best product put on the field. And so for, even though that our ideas and all that probably don't mean a hill of beans, we're looking at it from this preseason, and honestly, I really feel like that we have seen the best on this team. And yeah, Terry McLaurin, um, Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, De'Ami Brown, um, and Byron Pringle, Tinsley, guys like that. I would go with those guys, and like you said, Allen. I would give him a shot over Dax Mill, certainly. So yeah, that's what I think. So in our next video, we're going to keep moving on. We're not going to cover everybody tonight, but we'll stick with the offense in our next video because, of course, we've got tight ends to cover, running backs, and that offensive line. So we'll try to cover those in the next video or two. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting because looking ahead for the running backs, I've seen some more of what the Washington Post thinks is going to be the ones who's going to be cut, and the ones going to make the team. And I've got a little beef with that as well, but I'm going to save it for the next video, Brandon. Buddy, you got anything else before we wrap it up?
No, sir. Like you said, this is a good victory, man. 21-19, excuse me, over the Cincinnati Bengals. And look, I can't remember the last time we were undefeated in the preseason. I mean, this is definitely a great start to the Josh
Yeah.
Harris regime in DC. So, the fact that we, undefeated, they showed here's right before we leave, man. I mean, they showed a lot of fight. You see the chemistry both sides of the ball, and you feel a energy that we haven't felt, and for once, it really really feels good to be a fan of this team because for a
Yes.
long time, man, as much as I love this team, going back to the Redskins, the Washington football team, whatever, it's just sometimes we've been a butt of jokes for like the last 20 years, man. People call us the Deadskins, all these different names. I want to see pride back in this franchise. I definitely think that you're going to see a lot more people come back. So I don't want to get on my high horse here, but I'm very, very, very excited for the football season start, man. So I mean, September 10th cannot get here fast enough, Greg.
Oh, I know, I know. I mean, at least, I'm going on vacation next weekend, so at least I can say, okay, I'm not going to miss any football next weekend. So I'm getting that out of the way because I don't, I plan my life around these games. So, nobody get married and nobody die or have babies or anything like that. I'll give you the football schedule. You guys follow that. So, all right, man. I'm gonna wrap it up before I stick both feet in my mouth. Guys, thank you for joining us here. Please, again, consider subscribing if you've enjoyed this content. Um, Let us know in the comments below who do you think stays and who do you think goes. I think quarterbacks and wide receivers is probably a pretty easy pick for us. But what about you guys? Do you agree with us, or do you think that we're smoking dope? I mean, you just let us know in the comments below. And again, folks, held to the Washington Commanders. Undefeated in preseason, baby. Yes. Now let's see if we can carry that on into the regular season. All you guys have a great day. We will see you in the next one. Peace.